Good afternoon, my friends, and hello. It's been a few minutes. It's been a while since I have sat here in this chair and exchanged greetings with you and said my question of this cycle, this series of contacts, which how are you doing? I turned the live stream on a little early. For those of you who are regulars, we are still continuing to have some difficulties with sound and feeling confident that the live stream is working, and so I didn't want to get all the way through this. What I want to say to you is that if you're aware I'm on, and if the sound is not working, text me, email me. It's still now only 30 seconds before I normally come on, and I might be able to make some adjustments rather than spend 15 or 20 minutes talking to no one. Anyway, I'm back. I was back in the pulpit this coming Sunday. It felt like running with no legs, given that I'm recently returning from a week of process of celebrating my mom and my dad's life, which came to a kind of culmination on the death of my father. My dad died a week ago on Saturday at around 7 o'clock in the morning, and we were all there, and then gathered my big family. I have 5 brothers and a sister, and they're all married, and some are divorced and remarried, but in the blends and all of the mixture of that, there is an immediate family which is large, very large. So we spent a lot of time. Laura and I went and sat in residence. We rented suites in a hotel room for my children, and they came from Florida and from everywhere. People traveled from wherever they were. It was a great, grand gathering and a great, joyful celebration, which is good, because it helps to put some fuel in the tank for these days of trying to figure out how to allow life to return to normal. Just as I thought about saying that, I've been remembering that the conversation during this COVID time was, we can't wait till we get back to normal. And, even around the COVID issues, nothing is normal. Nothing is the way it was, and nothing will ever be the way it was. My father was a big part of my life. I was proud of that. I worked to make my father a big part of my life, and he reciprocated in his life. He was a pastor, so he was a role model for me. He was an antagonist to me and a protagonist. But now is the hard work. Now is when, for me in my recovery, and I will be referring to my grief like I have been referring to your griefs. Many of you I know have had griefs during this COVID time, and I don't know if it's because I'm 66 years old, but I'm aware that for a significant portion of our lives, our story has to do with who we've lost. It has to do with pets we've lost, and parents that we've lost, and friends that we've lost, and children that we've lost. And it's not a depressing story. It's a story of remembering, and it's a story of courage. It's the courage to come back to life and to re-engage. We go out to restaurants and still feel the scars of COVID, the employees that aren't there, the services that they cannot find staff for, and the way people have reorganized their lives. It has been a year and a half, major, I mean, you knew this, right? It has been a major cataclysmic event in the history of the world, this viral epidemic. And in some parts of the world today, someone was just reminding me, We have the luxury of thinking we're looking back, but in Brazil and in some other places in South America, the calamity is unfolding now and growing. Lord. So, how are you? I'm doing my best to be transparent to you, to say, I've had some really, really awesome experiences in the last week. I will not trade the experiences or the memories for anything for the rest of my life. I've also had some very sad experiences. I mean, moments of just weeping and crying and experiencing the power of our culture. Call it Christian culture if you want. The power of our Christian culture's ability to help us to deal with tremendous loss. Funeral services and gathering, eating together, just beautiful, beautiful. Healing salve, just beautiful. And then we spend time in moments like this where the pastor asks, so now how are you doing? How are you doing with those life adjustments that COVID has brought to you? How are you doing with your retirement that you've embraced and you're trying to make a new life with? How are you doing with the profound loss that you have from friends who are gone, or from children that you come to times like Father's Day or these holidays, and these empty experiences, these balloons come in front of us and they pop open. And yes, it's true. By the way, thank you to all of you who sit, you go to the store, you purchase a card, you look at what it says, you choose that card expressing condolences and sympathies and standing with us. You put your name on it, you write something to it, and you mail it to us. I have to say, I've fallen out of that tradition, and I want to get back in it because it's wonderful to go to the mailbox and see greeting after greeting after greeting from you. Yes, I am a Facebook person, and I have received hundreds of comments from people who will write memories and notes on Facebook and know that, my family's grieving, words of support, people from generations ago. That's in and of itself is a wonderful thing. I just want to say thank you to those of you who sent cards, and some of them are still coming. I really appreciate it. And it's a message to me too. I still have cards. I have a lot of cards that I've collected, and I will again resume writing cards and writing notes. I've sent them occasionally, but I will do that more. It's been very, very interesting thing. So thank you. So are you back to normal? Do you have a normal in your life yet? Have you been able to get your life, the wheels of your life rolling? It's interesting in the timing of the sequence of things. I told you I was trying basically to follow the curriculum of the church, the teaching lectionary of the church, to teach the patterns and practices of Christianity. And it's elusive. Christianity should never be reduced to doctrinal statements. Did you accept the Lord Jesus as your Lord and Savior and accept him into your heart, and are you saved? Far, far, far from what the church teaches us about what it means to live the Christian life day after day after day after day, come what may. And there is help, there are resources for living a Christian life, for reminding ourselves not of empty sentences that we say, but of practices that are part of the, that terrible word of the disciplines of our faith, that remind us over and over and over again of the lessons and the the strength of what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ. So we're in the after Easter season, in the 60 days after Easter, and then Pentecost. The Pentecost becomes the reminder that the power of God is with us in our lives. And I don't know how you tap into that. Sometimes I don't know how I tap into that. Sometimes I just say it in my mind and then think, what does that mean for me today? What does that mean for me? What does it mean for me not just to believe in God, but to draw on the power? I believe God is present. I believe God is listening now and with me. How do I reach beyond the veil, beyond what's visible, and draw on that as something to add into the mix of my life to make my life different? In the sequence of the church year, I think that what the followers of Jesus decided was that we needed to have all the basics of Jesus' life intact. We needed his lessons, his miracles, all of that there were the building blocks of learning, and then his death. Jesus facing death and dying and then being seen again after his death. The resurrection, the reawakening of his life, showing that death is not the end. Now, how you imagine that or however you want to picture that, that's up to you. The gospel writers were not very specific. They said he was in a room, they were in a room eating, and he appeared to them. He came walking on the lake. He appeared to them and taught them even after he had died. He was resurrected again. They touched his body, and then that part of his body disappeared. I think the point is that death, as powerful and as final as death is, it isn't an ending. It is not an ending. It is not. In fact, the Apostle Paul says that we carry death around. We carry the death of Christ around in our body every day. We carry the death of Christ around in our body every day so that the miracle of the resurrection can happen in our lives every day, and that we say, in spite of the death of a daughter or a friend or a relative or a job or a marriage or whatever, in spite of that death, we carry that death in us, but that life is what wins. Life prevails. Life prevails. This is the discipline of the Christian faith. I must confess it's a little easier, I think, to explain these things when I am not in the throes of grief. Although the older I get, the more familiar with grief I am, because I have a longer I have a longer stream of griefs that I have observed. The anatomy of my life has accomplishments and maybe some failures, and people who make up my life. But the back part of the book of my life is getting bigger in terms of the griefs I have observed and the griefs I carry with me, gladly carry with me. I remember as a young boy, the very first personal grief that I ever experienced was the death of my grandfather. I didn't know what death was. I'd had a couple of dogs that had died, and I had experienced death on the farm. But it's something different when it was this man who was pretty large in my life, larger probably in my imagination even than in the practice of my life. And then he died, and my grandmother died. And I knew this feeling of, wow, that's powerful. That door is shut. But I also immediately knew the experience of being able to sense that he was with me. He was with me in a way that he wasn't with me when he was alive and 2.5 hours away. He was with me. And I could use the memories of him. And I think that is what Christianity points to in terms of this central figure of Jesus himself. He's with us. He's with us. And he provides comfort. He sends comfort our way. He sees to it that others are in our lives, mutual believers who are able to support us, both not in the denial of grief. There's no gain in denying grief, none. Doesn't make it easier. Don't let anybody kid you. It just goes inward. But in the mutual aid, in the rural areas of York County, the fire departments and the rescue squads are called mutual aid. I think it's also true here that when one fire department needs more engines and volunteers, they go out to mutual aid, and the commitment that we will all come together. This is the Christian life. The Christian life is a life of mutual aid. But it's based on truth. It's based on the hard realities of life. And it just seems to me that there's layer upon layer of this, both death and life, which is upon us. I'm very, very ready for the remnants of the isolation and the masks and the contamination of the COVID virus. I am very, very ready to knock them into the dust bowl of history. I am so ready for it. I'm not sure, I'm not confident that we're at that point yet, even here. I know we're not in other parts of the world. We've learned some lessons. We've learned some lessons. We'll do some things differently. I'll look at my job differently than I have before. I think the need to figure out how to use technology to connect is more important than ever. And for those of you who have made a discipline of listening to this pastor talk for 15 minutes or 20 minutes a day, there's been some benefit. Some benefit for you, for some of you, I know, but also for me, benefit. So this week, we take another step, and it's a long journey, this journey through the weeks after Pentecost, the weeks through the summer. We journey back into the practical lessons of Jesus. On Sunday, we revisited Jesus when he sent his disciples out onto the lake, to the sea, as he called it, and a storm blew up. And he challenged them to trust that somehow he, or God, was the master of the waves. He was the master of the storms. And again, trying to give us a sense of how to have a confidence and a faith, if you will, in the middle of the tumults of life. And there's more to come. There's the lesson of the mustard seed, and there's the lessons of how God searches for us and how we search for God. And it's going to be this summer on how then shall we live? How are we to live our lives as Christians? What is the part and parcel of our lives as Christians? Is it praying a prayer of thanksgiving every time before we eat food? I think there's a part of that. I wish I did that more regularly. I had a friend who had been in the recovery program and was very grateful for every minute of sobriety that he had in his life. He was very close to death at the point where God's grace made an impact in his life. And because of that, he wasn't looking to do anything else for anybody else, but every time you sat down to eat with that man in a restaurant or at your house or wherever, he looked to see if you were interested, but if no one else was going to do it, he just withdrew himself for a moment in quiet and thanked God for that moment and for the food of that moment. There's a discipline of our Christian life. And there are others. There are others. And there are 100 different ways of doing that same thing. And best that we don't try to universalize it for each other, but that we do work to try to make those disciplines somehow a part of how to keep ourselves in line, in tune with what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ. And we'll talk some more about what are the symptoms. What are the symptoms that, you know what the symptoms of COVID were? Do you know what the symptoms of Christianity are? We'll talk about that this week, shall we? Okay, my friends, I'm really glad to be back live with you. I have a plan this week to be here with you every day. I will admit I've got some more doctoring to do. Some things didn't work out quite the way they wanted, so I may, don't be discouraged, I may miss a day or two in the next couple of weeks, again trying to get some medical issues resolved that are not life-threatening, but that I need to attend to. And I'll look forward to being back here with you. Bible study will be tomorrow night, Tuesday night, and then Wednesday morning we'll be back into the Psalms. I can't wait to get back in the following through of the Psalms. It's been an amazing journey for me. And soon, maybe, I think in September, we're going to start the Wednesday morning Bible study in person again, like we did, but we'll probably do the online through the Psalms in the summer. We talked about in person for Tuesday night, but too many people who attend that said that would make it impossible for them to attend. So we're taking one step at a time. We're finding our way. God bless you, my friends. I hope you are too. Email me, let me know, text me, let me know what you're praying about, what you need me to pray with you about, and I'll be happy to keep you under the umbrella of my concern and care as you give me permission and information to do so. God bless you, my friends, and thanks for coming by to chat today.